Are you ready to hear tales that will keep you awake at night? In today's video, I'm sharing the most disturbing experiences that real people have lived through. I guarantee that after this, you'll see the world differently. Hit that like button if you love horror stories and ring the notification bell. Story 1. The stranger in the van. I was about 10 years old when something happened that forever changed my perspective on safety. It was a hot July day, and my best friend and I were at the school playground, watching the boys practice street hockey. Suddenly, one of the kids came running over and said to me, "Hey, there's a man in the parking lot asking for you." From where I stood, I could spot an old 1980s van that definitely hadn't been there before. I started walking toward the vehicle when, fortunately, one of my classmates' mothers appeared looking for her son. When she asked what I was doing, I explained the situation. She immediately took my arm and walked with me, just as the van sped off at full speed. The lady walked me all the way home, and for the rest of the summer, my parents didn't allow me to leave the yard without supervision. At the time, I felt like I was being punished for no reason, but years later, I understood that I was probably the target of someone with sinister intentions. Thank you, Mrs. Martinez, wherever you are. What would you have done in that situation? Tell me in the comments. Story 2. WHEN. Reality fades away. I was always someone who really enjoyed the water. Swimming, diving, even jumping from cliffs. At 19, after reading a collection of horror stories, I decided those tales were pure fantasy and continued with my normal life. The following summer, during a vacation in Cyprus, my father and I ventured quite far into the ocean. Suddenly, I felt something brushing against my legs. I dove down to investigate, thinking it might be seaweed or fish. What I saw left me breathless, tentacles everywhere, glowing eyes, sharp beaks, and suction cups. I panicked and started swallowing seawater while these creatures surrounded me. My father managed to rescue me, but he hadn't seen anything unusual. At the hospital, we discovered the truth. I suffer from a hereditary schizoaffective disorder. My dad was devastated because, having not developed it like his mother and brother, he thought I was safe. Many things from my past made sense. People I believed were real didn't exist. Ideas I considered normal were delusions. I'm much better now with treatment, but I never go back in the water. If this type of content interests you, don't forget to subscribe. Story 3. The most disgusting medical case. As an ophthalmologist, I've seen strange cases, but this one exceeded all my limits. A patient came in with a severe eyelid infection that had resisted all treatments for weeks. Colleagues had tried to cure her unsuccessfully. Apparently, neither thought to perform the most basic maneuver, flipping the eyelid upward. When I finally did it, despite the pain it caused due to the inflammation, I discovered what appeared to be an abscess with a viscous substance. When I pressed lightly, I noticed movement. It wasn't pus. It was something alive. I carefully extracted a fully developed fly larva. The patient remembered that days before the problem started, an insect had hit her eye. After removing the larva, the infection completely disappeared within 48 hours with basic antibiotic drops. And yes, I kept photographs of the procedure. Want to see more extreme medical cases? Let me know in the comments. Story 4. The tragedy that marked my childhood. A pickup truck with 7 people was heading to a family celebration along lonely rural roads. The driver fell asleep at the wheel and, upon waking, realized he had lost control of the vehicle. In the few seconds he had to react, he made a selfish decision. He opened the door and jumped out to save himself. The truck, completely out of control, plummeted down a ravine, rolled several times, and ended up overturned. 5 people died instantly. One was lucky and only suffered minor fractures. Another person barely survived and was rushed to the hospital for multiple surgeries. When I saw her after the operation, she was completely wrapped in bandages like a mummy, with only openings for her eyes and mouth. She couldn't speak for months or walk for a full year. That woman was my mother, and the year was 2005. I was between 10 and 11 years old, and the image of her body covered in bandages still haunts me in my nightmares. This story shows how fragile life is. Have you experienced something similar? Story 5. Terror in the backyard. When I was 9 years old, we had mandatory swimming classes at school. My mom worked late, so after school, we went to daycare and didn't get home until it was already dark. That particular day, when we arrived, my mother asked me to hang my wet swimsuit and towel on the clothesline in the backyard so they could dry. I felt very mature and brave, so I went out without any fear. As soon as I set foot in the backyard, a man started running directly toward me. I screamed at the top of my lungs, ran toward the house, and by pure instinct, locked the back door. As I did so, at that moment, My mom heard my scream and also heard someone jumping the fence right next to her bedroom. She came running to see what was happening and found me completely terrified. I slept with the light on until I was 17 years